Gabriel Thorne secured the second chance he had desperately sought. He leveraged it immediately to repeat the original transgression. This was the final outcome. 2 instances of emotional wreckage delivered to the same victim, Aria Bennett, within the space of 1 linear hour. To document the precise nature of the failure, the sequence must begin 7 days prior to the original event, at the precise moment Gabriel materialized back in time. At 6:58 a.m., October 14th, Gabriel Thorne, aged 34, materialized in the apartment he had vacated 9 months previously. His physical state was consistent with severe exhaustion and psychological stress. His primary objective, derived from his singular focus, was the nullification of past damage inflicted upon Aria Bennett. He had exactly 3 hours before the original relationship fracture point occurred. Driven by immediate, non-strategic guilt, Gabriel disregarded any protocol for re-entry. He did not seek counsel or establish a plan. His sole movement was toward Aria and Apos' known location. At 7:15 a.m., Gabriel arrived at the community park where Aria, 32, was scheduled to walk. Her profile matched existing records. Light style, marked by a subtle, underlying weariness. Gabriel's approach was rapid and highly non-calibrated. His initial communication, intended to convey profound regret, was delivered with the urgency of a man drowning in his own culpability. This urgency directly mirrored the exact chaotic behavior that had terminated their relationship the first time. Aria's reaction was immediate caution, documented as a physical retraction and a subtle change in ocular focus. She registered the intensity of his presence before she processed the content of his words. Gabriel initiated the plea for absolute forgiveness, stating that he knew the future and had returned specifically to prevent her pain. This introduction of temporal instability immediately created distrust, rather than the intended sympathy. Gabriel and Apos' attempt to repair the past had, in fact, accelerated the conflict. The clock had not been reset. It had merely been accelerated toward the disaster point. Gabriel Thorne registered the cold, rough texture of the linen sheets immediately. The scent of ozone and stale cigarette smoke anchored him to the specific reality of the past. The digital clock on the bedside table read 7:15 a.m. The date was October 12th. He calculated quickly, 6 years and 2 days before the absolute collapse of his life. He was 34, existing in the body of his 28-year-old self. This was the window. This specific Monday morning was the demarcation line. He stood and surveyed the familiar, cluttered apartment on Elm Street. The visual environment was aggressively mundane. The palette was beige and gray, reflecting the indifference of a life not yet ruined. He located the jacket he had been wearing the last night he remembered, the same jacket now 6 years older and smelling faintly of temporal displacement, hanging on the closet door. His focus was singular: Aria Bennett. The mission required precision and control, 2 attributes he had lacked during the actual timeline. He had returned specifically to address the root cause of the previous failure, his selfish prioritization of career fear over commitment to her. The argument that severed their trust was scheduled for late tonight. He had approximately 10 hours to neutralize the threat. He moved through the small space with an unnatural velocity. He bypassed the usual morning routine: no coffee, no news. His movements were dictated solely by the awareness of the fragile temporal bubble. Every second wasted risked the original sequence of events regaining momentum. He grabbed his keys. He drove the city streets, noting the older model cars and the minor differences in storefronts, objective evidence that the transfer was successful. The distance to Aria's house was short, too short to compose the measured, reasoned apology he had planned over 6 years of isolation. He allowed the desperate guilt of the future to overwhelm the tactical requirement for calmness. This was the first operational failure of the second chance. At 8:05 a.m., Gabriel pulled his vehicle abruptly to the curb near Aria's small residential property. Aria was outside, locking the front door, preparing to leave for her art studio. She wore a floral dress and a light cardigan, her appearance exactly matching the last vision of her innocence imprinted on his memory. Aria turned as she heard the vehicle's tires scrape the asphalt. She registered Gabriel's hurried exit from the car, his speed, and the strained tension in his shoulders. "Gabriel?" she called out, her voice marked by immediate confusion. This deviation from their routine was unsettling. Gabriel closed the distance quickly, sprinting across the lawn without regard for appearance. He stopped 3 feet away, his breathing ragged, not from physical exertion, but from the urgency of his 6-year backlog of regret. This was the inciting incident. He initiated the conversation with desperation instead of calculated calm. "Arya, you have to listen to me right now," he demanded, his voice too high, the words delivered in a torrent. Arya's expression shifted instantly from surprise to professional alarm. She analyzed his appearance. Dark hair slightly disheveled, the depth of exhaustion in his eyes, the cold color of his clothes, mirroring an internal freeze. "What is it? Did something happen to Evan?" she asked, immediately searching for a tangible cause for his agitation. "No, no one is hurt, but we need to talk. Now, about tonight. About the choice I make tonight," he insisted, grabbing at the fragile thread of time. "I know what I did. I know the mistakes I will make, and I came back specifically to stop them." His language was riddled with chronological instability, referencing actions that Arya had not yet experienced. The intensity of his plea was completely disproportionate to the current stability of their relationship. Arya took a subtle but firm step backward, increasing the physical and emotional buffer between them. "Gabriel, what are you talking about? Came back from where? Tonight is dinner with Haley. You sound manic. Have you slept?" "I haven't slept properly in 6 years," he confessed, the truthful admission sounding like a confession of insanity in this current timeline. "I lost you. I lost everything because I couldn't articulate what mattered to me. I need your forgiveness before the moment arrives, so that moment never happens." The desperation of his request, seeking pardon for a crime not yet committed, created immediate paranoia in Arya. Her focus shifted entirely from the content of his warning to the manifest instability of his delivery. "Forgiveness for what? You haven't done anything, Gabriel. Why are you presenting this level of guilt right now? You are scaring me." He ignored the warning in her voice. He attempted to justify the temporal leap with emotional rationale, failing to understand that the rationale meant nothing without the shared context of the catastrophe. He extended a hand, attempting to bridge the distance she had created. His fingers brushed her cardigan. "Please trust me. I messed up the first time. I didn't know how much I loved you until I lived 6 years without you. I am here to tell you that this time, I will not leave." Arya physically recoiled from the touch. Her eyes were fixed on his, searching for the familiarity of the man she knew, finding only the terror of a man haunted by an unknown future. "You are acting like a stranger who knows my life. I don't know what you think you are trying to prevent, but this behavior is not supportive. It is destabilizing. Whatever anxiety you are experiencing, it is yours. It is not mine to forgive yet." He had succeeded only in transferring his profound guilt into her immediate environment, transforming the comfort of her routine into a sudden scene of emotional confrontation. He had shattered the calm foundation of their present relationship with the premature introduction of future trauma. The opportunity for correction was now severely compromised by the urgency of his initial failure to control his desperation. He had returned to seek forgiveness, and the resulting action only reinforced the fact that he was still emotionally unfit to receive it. The second chance was already tarnished. Gabriel approached the bench where Arya was seated. Seth was positioned 3 feet away, monitoring the exchange. The light on the asphalt was harsh, reflecting the tension. Gabriel's initial apology had failed to achieve the desired outcome. Instead, it had created suspicion. End quote. "We need to discuss last Tuesday," end quote, Gabriel stated, his voice tight. Arya adjusted her cardigan. End quote. "Gabriel, last Tuesday has not happened yet. It is Friday." End quote. End quote. "In this timeline, yes," end quote, Gabriel corrected automatically. The use of end quote, timeline end quote, caused Seth to visibly stiffen. End quote. I am referring to the Tuesday that follows the event I am trying to prevent. The Tuesday where you received the letter from Boston." End quote. Arya paused, the movement of her hand stopping midair. End quote. "How would you know about that?" End quote. Gabriel saw an opening, mistaking confusion for comprehension. He leaned forward, ignoring Seth's movement toward him. His breath was shallow. End quote. "I know because I lived past it. I lived 6 years without you, 6 years of knowing that day, that specific day when I didn't oppose. Fight for you was the worst mistake of my existence." End quote. Seth intervened, placing a hand firmly on Arya's shoulder. End quote. "Arya, this is not a discussion. This is harassment based on speculative delusion." End quote. Gabriel directed his attention to Seth. End quote. "You do not understand the stakes. You are attempting to shield her from a truth that is required for her future happiness." End quote. End quote. "Her happiness exists now, separate from your required presence." End quote. Seth countered. End quote. "Your desperation is the only element threatening it." End quote. Gabriel's fingers curled into fists. He had planned to be methodical, but the resistance expedited his emotional breakdown. He had only a limited window before the temporal pressure became unbearable, pushing him back to the devastating future he had left. End quote. "Arya, listen to me. I need to tell you what I should have told you 6 years from now or 6 years ago, depending on the perspective." End quote. Gabriel rushed, his words blurring. End quote. "The moment you walked out of the apartment, you left the sweater I bought you. The blue cashmere. I still have it. It smells like the rain we walked in downtown." End quote. The detail was true. Arya's composure fractured slightly. She remembered the sweater. End quote. "You could have asked Haley." End quote. Arya suggested quietly. End quote. "You could have found that out easily." End quote. End quote. "I could not." End quote. Gabriel insisted. End quote. "Because I did not ask Haley. I did not speak to anyone for 6 years. I merely existed in the consequence of that silence." End quote. He stepped closer. Seth tensed, ready to physically intervene. End quote. "I know how the argument ended." End quote. Gabriel continued, pushing the boundary of credibility. End quote. "It ended because I said, if you need to leave to find clarity, then go." That sentence, Arya, was the moment I destroyed everything. It was not courage. It was fear disguised as indifference." End quote. Arya looked past him, avoiding eye contact. Her breathing became uneven. The subjective nature of Gabriel's confession, the sheer weight of his regret, was too heavy for a simple apology. It required a context that did not exist. Later that evening, Gabriel tracked Arya to a quiet cafe. Haley Brooks was present, acting as a buffer. Gabriel had sent 3 unread text messages and left 2 voicemails detailing his urgency. End quote. "I am not leaving until you accept the parameters of my current reality." End quote. Gabriel stated, standing over their small table. The objective nature of his tone was replaced by a strained intensity. Haley stood up immediately. End quote. "The parameters of your reality are irrelevant to her peace, Gabriel. You are displaying textbook patterns of emotional manipulation, focusing entirely on your relief, not her well-being." End quote. End quote. "My relief is secondary." End quote. Gabriel snapped. End quote. "My priority is preventing the pain she experienced after I failed to communicate my love correctly." End quote. He fixed his gaze on Arya. End quote. "I am telling you the truth. I woke up this morning, and the date was 6 years earlier. I was given a chance to fix the specific failure that fractured us. I am not lying. I am operating under a severe, time-restricted compulsion to repair a specific historical anomaly." End quote. Haley laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. End quote. "A time loop? You expect her to believe that you traveled through time to deliver a better apology?" End quote. This was the pivotal moment, the major reveal. Gabriel needed to stop apologizing for the past and start defending the present impossibility. End quote. "It is not an expectation. It is a fact." End quote. Gabriel stated, lowering his voice, projecting absolute certainty despite the absurdity of the claim. End quote. "I do not know how I did it. I only know the world is currently unstable because of my presence. The letter I wrote, the one I plan to give you, it keeps changing. The ink fades, and new phrases appear, focusing on the inevitable, repeated fracture. The timeline is trying to correct itself, and the correction involves your sustained emotional separation from me." End quote. Arya finally looked up, her face devoid of color. End quote. "What did the letter say, Gabriel?" End quote. End quote. "Originally it said, and Apos. I have waited too long to say I love you and Apos. Now," end quote. Gabriel pulled a folded piece of parchment from his inner jacket pocket, displaying it to her, end quote. "It says, and Apos. I tried to fix the moment, but the attempt only guarantees that the pain will be experienced twice, and Apos," end quote. Haley reached for the letter, her expression hardening as she read the precise, clinical script. The paper felt strangely brittle, almost aged. Arya pushed her chair back, the scraping sound loud in the quiet cafe. The revelation was not a path to understanding. It was confirmation of mental instability or highly sophisticated deceit. The desperation in Gabriel and Apos' delivery mirrored the recklessness that had initially driven them apart. The fear that Seth and Haley had warned her about materialized. End quote. "You have come back with an excuse, not an answer," end quote. Arya whispered, her voice shaking with controlled effort. End quote. "You have taken the pain I experienced, the actual, tangible loss of 6 years ago, and framed it as a cosmic mistake that needed fixing by you. You are using the concept of fate and time travel to absolve yourself of personal responsibility," end quote. End quote. "No, Arya, that is not," end quote, end quote. "You came back desperate to remove your own guilt," end quote. She interrupted, cutting him off with the precision of a practiced surgeon. End quote. "And in doing so, you have introduced a level of chaos and distress that is exponentially greater than the original error." End quote. Seth, alerted by Haley and Apos' urgent text, arrived at the cafe entrance, his posture suggesting immediate intervention. He surveyed the scene. Gabriel's panicked, wild-eyed stare, Arya's profound emotional exhaustion, and the strange parchment resting on the table. Gabriel understood the dynamic immediately. His rushed, manic attempt to confess the impossible truth had not granted him forgiveness or a second chance. It had proven to everyone present that he was still the same self-centered agent of chaos, albeit now amplified by an unbelievable temporal complication. End quote. "You believed I had changed," end quote. Arya stated, tears finally tracking down her cheeks. End quote. "I believed the desperation was genuine remorse. But this is worse. This is the act of a man so self-involved, he would risk universal stability just to silence his own conscience," end quote. She stood up, her movements slow and deliberate, reaching for her jacket. Gabriel extended a hand, the action purely instinctual. End quote. "Arya, wait. If you leave now, the cycle repeats. I know what happens next. The loneliness is absolute." End quote. End quote. "The loneliness I feel now is absolute," end quote. Arya returned, her voice steadying. End quote. "But this time, it is combined with the violation of feeling used as a plot device for your redemption. You have reopened a wound that was beginning to scab, and you did it with the very intensity that caused the original damage," end quote. Seth placed a proprietary hand on Arya and Apos' lower back, guiding her toward the exit. Haley blocked Gabriel's path. Gabriel watched them retreat. The colors of the cafe, previously defined, seemed to shimmer around the edges. A profound, sinking realization settled. He had spent all his temporal currency on an apology built from fear, not fundamental change. He had repeated the failure, not fixed it. He had returned to seek forgiveness, but had only earned a deeper, more justified rejection. The temporal anomaly was not the problem. The anomaly was still him. Gabriel advanced toward Arya. Seth positioned himself immediately between them, a barrier of immovable stability against Gabriel and Apos' frantic desperation. The environment was the same park bench where Gabriel had initiated the original catastrophic breakup years prior. Gabriel's breathing was shallow and uneven. He had exhausted every argument. He had revealed fragmented truths about his journey back in time, truths that Arya received not as clarification, but as evidence of profound mental instability. End quote. "Arya, please. Listen to the entire truth this time. I know what I did. I know the pain I caused. I have lived with the consequences of that day for years. I am trying to undo the greatest error of my life, end quote. Gabriel stated, his voice fracturing on the word and apos. Error and apos. Arya did not look at him. She focused on the fixed point of Seth's shoulder. Her expression was documented as blank, indicating severe emotional withdrawal. End quote. The time travel narrative is irrelevant, Gabriel, end quote. Seth interjected, his voice low and stable, the voice of controlled judgment. End quote. What is relevant is your current conduct. Your return is not an act of repentance. It is an intrusion fueled by self-pity. You have caused her demonstrable distress in less than 48 hours. End quote. Gabriel ignored Seth. He directed his gaze solely at Arya, attempting to pierce the emotional shield she had erected. End quote. I need you to look at the letter, Arya. The first words I wrote, they changed. They reflect the truth of what is happening now. End quote. He gestured toward the pocket where she had stored the initial, pristine apology note. Arya slowly retrieved the folded paper. As she unfolded it, Gabriel observed a subtle, unsettling flicker in the light. The elegant handwriting that had originally promised an apos, eternal commitment and apos, now appeared distorted. The words had shifted, end quote. I regret my choices, but my actions remain inevitable, end quote. This transformation confirmed the failure of his timeline adjustment. She read the revised sentence aloud, her voice trembling slightly. End quote. Inevitable. That is what you truly believe. That you are destined to wound me. End quote. End quote. No, that is the consequence of my failure to articulate the change I sought. I am trying to change the inevitability. End quote. Gabriel insisted, taking one step forward, which caused Seth to brace slightly. Arya finally met his eyes, and the pain in her gaze registered immediately as worse than the cold dismissal he had faced in the original timeline. This time, there was an active, burning disappointment. End quote. You came back promising a different man, Gabriel, end quote. Arya stated, her words measured despite the tears now starting to fall. End quote. The first time you simply left. That was a clear, sharp wound. I knew where I stood. I knew you were gone, and I learned to heal the incision, end quote. She touched the faint scar on her wrist, a visual element that emphasized the physical manifestation of his past cruelty. End quote. This time, end quote. She continued, escalating the intensity, end quote. You returned. You forced me to question if the initial pain was justified. You offered a fragile glimpse of hope, a hope I fought against, but one that took root anyway. And then you proved that the underlying self-serving desperation, the chaos, the inability to prioritize my stability over your own guilt, remains unchanged, end quote. She paused, taking a ragged breath. The surrounding environment seemed to blur slightly, a minor temporal distortion visible only to Gabriel. End quote. The initial pain was a loss of love. This second pain is the loss of belief, end quote. Arya delivered the final blow. End quote. It is far worse, Gabriel. You broke the trust one had managed to rebuild in myself. You did not fix the past. You poisoned the present and confirmed the future. End quote. The observation was factual. The emotional weight of her statement crushed Gabriel. He registered the realization that his return had not been an act of sacrificial love, but an attempt to alleviate his own crushing burden of guilt. He had sought absolution, not reconciliation. End quote. I hurt you again, end quote. Gabriel whispered, the realization settling into him with crushing finality. He saw the truth clearly. He had not addressed the root cause of his initial actions. His fear, his self-doubt, his tendency toward emotional flight. Knowing the consequences of the past had merely equipped him with better excuses for the same behavior. Seth placed a hand firmly on Arya's back, a gesture of absolute possession and protection. End quote. This conversation is terminated, Gabriel. Arya requires stability and predictability, two qualities you have repeatedly proven incapable of providing. Now, and evidently in any possible future. End quote. Gabriel stepped back, defeated. He watched as Arya leaned into Seth, accepting the stability he offered. The visual evidence was irrefutable. Seth represented the safe path, the predictable shore, while Gabriel was the turbulent, time-distorted storm. Arya did not say goodbye. She simply turned her back, accepting Seth's gentle guidance as they walked away. They walked toward the brighter end of the park, away from the shadows where Gabriel remained. Gabriel stood motionless, observing the retreating figures. The light surrounding them intensified, isolating Gabriel in a pool of dim, cold gray. The time itself seemed to reject him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small watch he carried, the instrument of his temporal violation. It was cracked, the gears slowing, then freezing completely. The loop was closing. His resolution was solidified. He had failed. He had repeated the exact tragic flaw he sought to erase, multiplying the resultant pain. He was left alone, witnessing the past solidify into the future he tried to prevent. Only now, it was irrevocably worse for Arya. The timeline corrected itself, leaving him isolated in the moment of his greatest failure, the knowledge of the future acting as a permanent anchor to his guilt. The definitive, objective fact remained. Gabriel went back in time, asked for forgiveness, and broke her heart again. I know that this story is intense, and that is precisely why I share these moments. If you value truth and enjoy stories that force you to think and feel, please consider doing the following. Subscribe to the channel and comment with the city you are watching from. It is the best way to ensure that you do not miss the next lesson in life. The primary objective of the temporal regression, to correct the singular moment of emotional transgression against Arya Bennett, was met with catastrophic failure. The analysis of the resulting timeline confirms that the protagonist, Gabriel Thorne, successfully traveled backward in time, but failed entirely to mitigate the psychological variables that had initiated the original collapse. The critical lesson extracted from this catastrophic event is a definitive statement on the nature of repentance and change. Gabriel Thorne sought pardon not as a byproduct of genuine self-reformation, but as a mechanism to alleviate his own crushing burden of guilt. The time travel experiment proves, with clinical certainty, that the act of seeking forgiveness for selfish reasons is structurally identical to the original abandonment. It is merely a different manifestation of the same psychological disorder, self-prioritization over the emotional integrity of the victim. Upon arrival in the past, Gabriel's behavioral patterns exhibited zero quantifiable deviation from his pre-travel character. The same panic, the same tendency toward desperate, unstructured urgency, and the identical inability to prioritize Arya's emotional space over his internal need for absolution were immediately evident. The temporal displacement hypothesis, that altering the environment would alter the outcome, was rejected. The true controlling variable was the internal state of the agent. Since Gabriel's internal variables remained constant, the interaction with Arya produced an outcome that was not merely identical to the past, but statistically worse. Arya's reaction functioned as the ultimate metric of this failure. The original event caused pain rooted in betrayal and loss of trust. The second, time-accelerated event caused a deeper, more complex trauma rooted in the fleeting belief that change was possible, followed by the agonizing realization that the instability was ingrained. Gabriel's confession of time travel and subsequent plea was perceived by Arya not as a loving gesture, but as evidence of a deeper, perhaps pathological, desperation. This intervention confirmed Seth Rowan's initial diagnosis of the threat posed by Gabriel. Seth, the protective constant in Arya's life, did not need to fabricate evidence of Gabriel's instability. Gabriel provided it instantly. The defensive perimeter Seth established was fully justified by the protagonist's actions in the reconstructed timeline. His presence was a necessary countermeasure to the persistent volatility of Thorne. The final sequence, where Gabriel witnessed Arya willingly choose the stability represented by Seth, confirms the irreparable nature of the damage. Gabriel had not only failed to restore the timeline but had also solidified a future where his presence was actively detrimental to Arya's well-being. By attempting to undo the past, he ensured his total and permanent removal from the future. The system of causality established this immutable law. You cannot mend a relationship by focusing on the external wound if the internal mechanics that created the wound remain active. The The tool of time travel was wasted because it was applied to the wrong subject. The target for change was Gabriel Thorne's character structure, not the historical date of the transgression. The cost of this experiment was high. Gabriel, having broken Arya's heart once, successfully leveraged his desperation to break it a second time, achieving a level of emotional destruction that surpassed the original injury. The consequence for Gabriel is an eternal, irreversible loop of regret. He possesses the knowledge of the precise moment of failure and the opportunity to correct it, yet his inherent flaws guarantee that he will fail every single time. He is sentenced to watch the one person he truly loved walk away, knowing that his greatest sacrifice, the journey through time, only served to hasten her departure. The moral framework derived from this analysis is stark and objective. Repentance without genuine personal evolution is merely performance. Forgiveness is not a commodity that can be extracted through desperation or the manipulation of temporal physics. It must be earned through stable, measurable transformation, a process Gabriel chose to circumvent. He paid the ultimate price for prioritizing relief from his own guilt over the genuine, slow healing process required by Arya. The failure was not one of logistics, but one of character. Now, I want to know from you. Comment down below. What would have been your choice in my place? Would you have made this sacrifice? And if you like surprising endings, I left another video right here next to me. It is a shocking story. Click there. We will meet in the next video.